Reality check. It's Easter. Rambling about the reality of regular writing. Every now and again, when writing these rambles, I've included little personal updates, something I've done less of recently since more people started reading. I suppose I've started second-guessing what people want to read. I've rightly or wrongly assumed that people don't want personal updates in these rambles, so I've avoided including them. Today, however, I'm going to give you a catch-up on what's going on in my world. If that's not of interest to you, no hard feelings. Hopefully you can join me again next week when I'll do a normal ramble. Easter is the surprise busy time of the year. By that I mean Advent gives the whole world fair warning that Christmas is coming. The world and his wife is well aware that Christmas is fast approaching, and we all make allowances for how busy people will be. Even though the vast majority of folks in the UK are not observing Advent in any religious way, subconsciously we all count down to Christmas, whether we have an actual Advent calendar or not. We all know that Christmas makes demands on our calendar, but Lent does not have the same cultural traction and is largely overlooked by people outside of the traditional church. As a result, Easter is surprisingly busy every year. Easter is every bit as busy as Christmas if you work in a church setting like I do, but nobody makes any allowance for this. I've never heard anybody ever saying, "Shall we not do that? It's a busy time of year. It is Easter after all." Yet such an observation will be considered normal at Christmas. Nobody tries to squeeze in extra events at Christmas, but this is Easter. Somehow it flies under the radar. Easter means school's work. Last week, my colleague and I were in a local school running the Easter Murder Mystery activity. It's an Easter-themed activity which encourages young people to investigate the most talked about death in history and to decide for themselves where his body went. It's a very cool thing to be able to do, and we're fortunate enough to have a local school that loves what we do and have invited us in 3 years in a row to do this activity with their Year 5 students. I've been running this activity in various forms for various age groups for 10 years now. I've run this activity with 9 to 16-year-olds, but a friend of mine used it as a Bible study with adults. Every year I update and improve the pack. Continual small improvements are all part of the job. Rewriting or tweaking the questions is something of an annual activity for me. Later this week, we'll be back in school again, reading the Easter story rhyme with the Year 2 students there. You can find out about that book here and download some free craft activities for your church event if you like. This is another really fun thing to do and such a privilege to be able to share with the children. We usually spend half the time telling the story and then getting them to tell the story back to me as we recap the slides that accompany this story. Then we make some resurrection-themed craft for the rest of the lesson. The children love it. This weekend we'll also be hosting a charity night with our youth. We found that the young people in our church are very generous and love to give to charity. So we try and run a couple of charity nights each year for them. At Christmas, the young people supported the bake sale we ran so well that we were able to pay for the Christmas dinner for all the residents at our local YMCA. Amazing. Today, I've spent my time printing bags and making badges to sell on Friday night. This time we're raising funds for a school in Uganda that some of the volunteers who work on our youth team support. We're excited to enable our young people to be generous again. Generosity isn't just me speaking in code as a more polite way of saying they give us money. Not at all. Some of the young people volunteer to bake for us so we can sell their cakes. One young girl is a budding fashion designer and she's made and adapted some clothes which will be on sale. I love that they're willing to donate their time and their talents and not just their money or treasure to complete the 3 T's. Next weekend is Palm Sunday, so we'll be hosting the Palm Party at church. This is a great opportunity to invite families from our local area to celebrate with us and to learn something of the real story of Easter. This year we'll continue with the same theme as last year, which is to try and help people imagine what it would have been like to witness the events of the first Palm Sunday. In fact, I've bought a load of mini flags for the children to wave as imaginary palm branches. Let's participate in the story rather than just tell it. I want to see if we can get a big Hosanna shout from everyone who comes along. In my head, I can already see us acting out, being among the crowds who lined the streets that day, sharing in the joy and the excitement of that historic moment. As ever, we'll be giving away copies of the Easter story to the children who've come along and encouraging them to take copies for their friends. We've also found that the Palm Party is an opportunity for people to bring their friends along who may not normally ever come to church. We get lots of people bringing their friends, neighbours and relatives along who would never normally come to church. In all this activity, it will not surprise you to know that I've not been able to give much of my attention to my writing project. It's an evenings and weekend project for me, so it's not something that I'm able to dedicate that much time to. I'm currently working on my third draft, trying to make corrections and add a little bit more descriptive colour and make sure that all the details are correct. I've also decided my story needs a map, so that's something that needs working on too. I last mentioned the book that I'm working on back in December, and although I've made progress since then, when I look back at what I wrote on my last ramble of 2025, my actions have not lived up to my optimism that I had back then. Once Easter is out of the way, I really need to knuckle down and get it finished off. Once this draft is done, I will do one round of querying publishers, and after that go straight to self-publishing if no one shows an interest. I don't expect a publisher to take a risk on it, because it's my first book in this style and I haven't got a ready-made audience to market the book to, but I'll give it a go, just in case. Long-time readers of these rambles will know that writing a children's book was the goal I set myself last year. I managed it, in as much as any unpublished book can be considered written. This year, my goal is to get it published in some way, shape or form. Who knows? It might just happen. We've got 10 months still to go in 2026. If you have made it this far, thanks for joining me on the ramble this week. I know it's been a bit of a different one. Truth be told, it's the third ramble I've written this week. The first one I wrote, I don't want to publish yet as I'm not quite happy with it. The second one I wrote, I started with gusto, then collided with a brick wall and somehow completely lost interest in it. So this is the third and final ramble of the week. Sorry about that. I hope you can join me again next week for another journey with my thoughts. Grace and peace.